Michael Gove made a speech this week where he said Britain had the warmest attitude to migration. He was ridiculed, laughed at, shouted down. The implication being that this country is inherently racist and treats migrants like dirt. We don't. We're one of the least racist countries in any mature Western democracy, and we're certainly the least racist in Europe. But anyone who dares to say that is accused of sticking up for the racist or being racist themselves. And then there was that wedding. Yes, it was joyous and uplifting, and Meghan looked incredible. But I'm sick of commentators peddling the notion that black Brits have been waiting for a dark-skinned duchess to make them feel British and feel better about themselves. And white Brits needed to see a mixed-race woman marrying Harry to realise that black people are acceptable. It's patronising and it's insulting. Yes, in a population of 65 million people, there will be racists, but this nation is not racist. And the Liberal elite defames and disrespects the people of this country by conflating those who simply want to control the numbers coming here with the minuscule numbers who do hate immigrants.
Carole, I don't disagree with all you've said, and I'm going to leave, I think, Meghan Markle bringing mixed-race blessings onto our country for someone else. Because what I want to talk about is the fact that it wasn't what he said, but the fact that it was Michael Gove who said it. And Michael Gove fronted the Vote Leave campaign, which didn't have a dog whistle when it came to anti-immigrant sentiment. It was a loud clarion call. There were posters threatening the arrival of 76 million Turks into your village, and they terrified me, and I'm part Turkish. The fact is that he stoked fear of immigration throughout the campaign. And now to say, come in, the water's lovely, everybody, we are warm but not a hostile and cold environment, is frankly very rich, because since the country voted to leave, as he suggested in those posters, there's been a spike in hate crime. But worse, our own Home Secretary, who is of Pakistani origin, yesterday gave a speech in which he detailed the anti-immigrant abuse that his brother gets on the streets, people shouting Paki at him. And this has happened since he's, in the recent times. But there's also been a poll which actually proves that Brexit stoked anti-immigrant racism, because since Brexit's been a success, fear of immigration has fallen to its lowest level since the financial crash. Where people think Brexit's dealt with immigration, we don't have to worry about it anymore, and we can actually start thinking about all the good things that the immigrants did.
So one thing you said that the Leave campaign stoked fear. I think that's rich coming from a Remainer. The Remain campaign stoked fear.
Did Remain stoke fear of immigration?
Let's talk about what you call this spike in hate crime. In 2016 and 17, there were 14,500 prosecutions for hate crimes. That is 7% down on the previous year. Yes, one of the reasons that the figures appear to have increased and not actually have increased is because, or not necessarily increased, is because the police have found a new way to record crimes. So it might look like there are more, but there aren't necessarily more. Now, this has come out of lots of organisations and lots of polls. So you can't just say there's been I think the British people get really fed up of being slated as racist. They're bombarded every day by allegations of racism. This is one of the most welcoming countries in the world.
Good.
You look at France. Look at France, and they say, oh, the Republic doesn't see colour, the Republic doesn't see where they're coming from. In this country, thank God we do. We are obsessive about it, and so obsessive. We take people who come here, we educate them, we give them homes, we give them welfare, we look after them. That's why everyone wants to come to this country. My husband is a migrant. He came here from Bosnia, but long before the war. And he says that this is the least racist country he has ever been to in his life. His friends, who during the war were sent to countries like Germany, like France, like Italy, they all encountered vicious, nasty racism.
Sure
this country is not racist. And it
doesn't mean we're perfect.
People must be getting really sick of being accused of it.
OK. I grew up in the early 90s, as you know, Carole, being chased by neo-Nazi skinheads who were attacking me with hammers and knives and screwdrivers. And I was the Dwayne Brooks of the Stephen Lawrence analogy there, because I had to watch many of my friends stabbed because of the colour of their skin. And I was not stabbed, just like Dwayne Brooks, but many of my friends were. Hammers put to their heads and machetes put to their bodies. because of the colour of their skin. I was 15 years old. I refer to that as the bad old days of racism.
Yeah.
I do think that there are two things you've said that are correct. Britain, despite that experience I had, is more welcoming than most continental European countries. That must be acknowledged. And the second is that they were the bad old days of racism. Certain progress has been made. We now have a British Pakistani Mayor of London. I could never have dreamed at the same time as that happening that we'd have a British Pakistani Home Secretary. I think it's important that we acknowledge and give credit where credit is due. Otherwise, when we do raise serious concerns about racism, that is re-rearing its ugly head across Europe, that those concerns aren't taken seriously if we keep crying wolf. So I try very hard to give credit where credit is due. Even though, of course, they're both from different ends of the political spectrum. But it's diversity in action right there with Sajid Javid and Sadiq Khan. But just, I think this week, Yasmin Ali Brown was talking about the royal marriage. And, you know, she has her views, but she's got the right to those small R Republican views. And Nadine Dorris
she said be nice.
No, she didn't say be nice. She said more than that.
You should be grateful.
She said, she actually implied that Yasmin should be grateful and stop complaining because this country's given her everything. And I just find that this approach to basically telling people that are of colour who have some criticisms that they are political criticisms, whether at the monarchy or the system.
What Gove was saying.
No, I'm talking about Nadine Dorris.
I know, but I don't know necessarily you should...
Why I'm saying we have to be vigilant is because it can rear its head again.
I wouldn't derail Carole's argument because of what Nadine Dorris says in one tweet. The broad thrust, or the central point of Carole, is that this country is very welcoming.
I agree with that.
If we look at the last names, the three of the panel sitting around it, there's a clue that there probably is.
There's no dispute there. All I'm saying is we need to be vigilant that it doesn't rear its head again, because in continental Europe at the moment, it is coming back.
Why was Gove laughed at and ridiculed for saying that? People were saying, you know, he's got his head in the sand, he's not saying stuff.
I agree with the content of his speech, like Rachel. I agree with what was said in terms of the content of the words. I hate identity politics, but I just think it's unfortunate that he was the guy that said it because of the Brexit campaign. I agree with Rachel there.
I found it quite ironic, Carole, that you're saying Britain is no longer racist at the same time as talking about our dark-skinned Duchess. I think, you know...
What am I supposed to say? Mixed-race Duchess?
I just found that really uncomfortable.
What should I say? What should I say?
I just don't know why you referred to her that way.
Because the whole of the debate around the wedding was about the colour of her skin and the fact that she's mixed race.
So I was very positive about the royal wedding, even though I'm not usually a big monarchist. I've always respected the fact that people feel emotional about the royal family because I understand identity, and I think for many people they represent cultural continuity, which is part of their sense of belonging. And I respect that because in my life I've searched a lot for a sense of identity, and I didn't personally find it in the royal family, partly because I think they perpetuated this idea that there's something inherently white about British identities. On the question about racism, I think we're misunderstanding what racism is. You've taken racism as a thing that people do, you know, a prejudice that they get accused of. To me, that's not what racism is.
It's not an attitude.
It's not a set of personal characteristics. But you said British people are sick of being accused of being racist.
Well, they are, because they're not.
When I talk about racism, I'm not accusing individual people, and there are racist people, as you've agreed. We all know there are. Magic got beaten up by them growing up, or watched his friends get beaten up by them. My interest isn't really in them. My interest is in how, as a society, we structurally discriminate and treat unfairly people based on their race. And that is what report after report, whether commissioned by David Cameron, Theresa May, Tendai Uchami, the UN envoy who came here, and Special Rapporteur, and found that since Brexit, structural racism has got worse.
Let's talk about that special rapporteur who came across to actually do a report. She was here for all of 11 days. She spoke exclusively to pressure groups, and then she went home again. After 11 days, she decided that this country had normalised racism. I'm sorry, that's just not...
Windrush. I want to just again...
You made yourself the victim in this scenario.
I was so...
It's about you being sick of being accused of being racist.
No, I said the British people were sick of it.
You know, there's another area where I just want to give credit where credit is due. I was so furious when that Windrush scandal erupted. But actually, what I found heart in and what I found solace in was the actually unified reaction from across the political lines of disgust and abhorrence at what had happened. And so I think there is some solace to be found in the way in which this country uniformly, whether Conservative, Labour or anything else in between, sounds like gender, doesn't it, reacted in response to that Windrush scandal.
I was proud of us.
I mean, the fact that it happened, though, is a terrible thing. And so that's why I keep saying we must remain vigilant.
And there's a reason why it happened.
Yeah, there is.
And the reason is related to Carole's topic.
That's why vigilance is crucial.
Was that immigration has been weaponised against people of colour. It's not a coincidence that it was black and brown people
I wish we had
who were
time to
being
go into why
deported.
that happened.